Scott Burnside, ESPN.com, alongside Pierre LeBrun and Craig Custance, Prudential Center, Newark, New Jersey. And I'm just going to move to the side a little bit. The Vancouver Canucks draft table will be a busy table, as will all of these Sunday afternoon for the annual draft. But, Craig, we're going to start with you because you predicted this in a podcast many, many weeks ago. The Vancouver Canucks now apparently entertaining offers for netminder, not Roberto Luongo. Well, they are, but perhaps. Corey Schneider, though, apparently now being offered up.
I don't think you have to say apparently. They are.
But you suspected this or floated this a while ago. What would happen? What would be the worst thing if the Canucks decided to try and move Corey Schneider? Maybe better return for him, younger goalie, better term, smaller term, obviously, lower dollar. Are you surprised at all that this has come out in the day before the draft?
Well, at this point, yeah, I would say I'm surprised. For one, usually my ideas are, so far out there that they don't pan out. But I would say in this case, the thought process was this. You have two goalies who essentially are still two high-end goalies that are going to pay off for you. You're competitive with either guy. But now in Corey Schneider, you're going to get a much bigger return than you are for Roberto Luongo, who you may not be able to get any return at all at this point because of that contract. So if you're the Vancouver Canucks and you're sitting there the day before the draft and you can get a huge return for Corey Schneider, and you still have capable goaltending, and Roberto Luongo is more than capable, I think it's a pretty wise move by Mike Gillis.
Well, I mean, a huge return is a relative thing, is it not? I mean, it's a man with fairly small resume in terms of NHL play and really played poorly in the two playoff games in which he played during the sweep at the hands of the San Jose Sharks in the first round. Is his stock as high as it might have been during the regular season?
Yeah, I still think it's high because of his age. I still think people believe in him. No one thinks less of Carey Price after having a bad playoff. I think young goalies...
You say no one?
Okay. People who maybe don't really know the game think that. But, I think his stock is high. And if you can get a high draft pick, remember the Canucks don't have a first-round pick. They traded for Derek Roy. If you can get a high pick, you can get a positional player that can play either in your top six or your top four in defense. That helps your team if you're making that type of deal with Corey Schneider. The real question here is, how does Roberto Luongo feel about all this? Remember, he wants out unconditionally. It's not about whether or not he can have the net to himself in Vancouver. He said he wants out of Vancouver. So the process here, if this trade goes through for the Vancouver Canucks, Corey Schneider being dealt, they have to make amends and convince Roberto Luongo, to maybe buy a new house in Vancouver at this point. I mean that's a big conversation to have.
Well, the drama never stops with the Canucks, of course, and the new head coach with John Tortorella. Before we close, though, on the night before the draft, a million things in the air, as there always is, and perhaps more so this year with all of the lockout, fallout, the buyouts. Let's talk a little bit about Vincent Lecavalier and the growing list. Now there are teams, are there like 40 teams now interested in Vincent Lecavalier?
Yeah, the list got up to 15 teams with the Lecavalier camp, and the idea, in speaking with Ken Hughes, the agent for Vincent Lecavalier on Saturday, is that they would come up with a short list either by the end of the night on Saturday night or by Sunday morning, where that list would be, 3 or 4 teams that they could really focus on. And that's also in difference to all the teams that are involved because the draft is coming on Sunday, and they need to know if they're in or out because it could affect picks and trades and everything else if you sign that kind of player or you think you have a chance at signing him. And so, a lot of teams are in. Dallas Stars meeting with Lecavalier himself and his agent on Saturday afternoon. The Boston Bruins have thrown their hat in after losing Nathan Horton to free agency. Toronto, Montreal, San Jose, I feel like go on forever. Philadelphia has some interest. It's extremely intriguing and a name with a lot of buzz.
Good. Well, no doubt Philadelphia will be in. Is there a big name that Paul Holmgren doesn't want a piece of at any point, at any time in the NHL world? But do you have a sense, do you have a gut that says, okay, is Vincent Lecavalier looking for a new long-term home? And some suspicion, does he sign somewhere short-term, perhaps Detroit? We saw Marian Hossa do that. Maybe with an eye to returning to Tampa, his only NHL home until 48 hours ago. What's your sense? Do you have a gut on where, what happens with Vincent Lecavalier? I think, the top center now on the free agent market.
I agree with that assessment. To me, I think it'll say a lot about Vinny here at this point because there's always been this speculation that he's liked playing in Tampa and he didn't necessarily want to go to Montreal with the kind of pressure and the spotlight that would come with playing for the Canadiens. So now he has this huge opportunity to handpick which team he wants to go to. Does he want to go to that big market and become the guy, the big offseason addition? Or does he go, like Pierre mentioned, to Dallas, where he would still be a huge addition for them, but without maybe as much pressure? And so I think we learn a lot about him in this process.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this is ongoing stories. They are fluid, as are we in general. So for Pierre LeBrun and Craig Custance, I'm Scott Burnside, Prudential Center, Newark, New Jersey.